Hello, Ron here from L.T.L. Tutoring Central, and this week I'm talking about questions to ask when looking for a tutor. Now, many of these questions will apply to parents looking for their child, but many of them will apply to an adult looking for a tutor as well. Now, a lot of people believe that the very first question should be, what does it cost? What's the price? Now, I understand that's very important, and I don't mind talking about cost, but I would rather that you ask that question a little bit later, because there are a lot of more important aspects than just the cost. Sometimes if you're only focused on price, you're missing out on a lot of the other factors that are involved in finding a good quality tutor. And remember, you're looking for someone to change your or your child's mind and to give them skills and strategies that they'll use for the rest of their life. So this is important. So cost, while I know it's a factor, it shouldn't be the only factor, and it shouldn't even be the main factor if possible. I realize we all have budgets. But let's look at some other questions that should be asked. One of them is, what do you tutor? This is very important, because if they don't tutor the subject that you're looking for, then this can be a relatively short conversation. So tutors don't tutor everything. I get calls from people wanting me to help them with subjects and courses that I have never even heard of, so I probably am not going to be able to help in that regard. The other question is, where do you tutor? Because some people tutor in their homes, some people meet in neutral locations, some people have an office, some people go to the client's home for tutoring. And then don't forget about online tutoring, because this is a whole new, well, relatively new area, and many tutors like myself do a combination. I can do all online tutoring, or I can do a combination of in-person and online tutoring. So there are many different locations or ways to tutor, so you want to know, where do you tutor? And don't forget about the online tutoring. And how long is each tutoring session, and what days and times? You know, I generally do 2 one-hour sessions a week. For my in-person tutoring, it's different online, although sometimes we do the same schedule. But it's important to understand how that process is going to work. And what is your availability? What is the tutor's availability? Again, if he or she is fully booked, then you probably need to move on, at least for the moment. Now, you may decide to have a longer conversation just to get to know the tutor. Maybe later they'll have a space open and you might want to change. But otherwise, if they're full and they don't have the right times that will fit with your schedule, then of course you may need to look for another tutor. What are your qualifications? Does the tutor have the qualifications that make you feel comfortable? Now, this is a tricky one, because there are all different kinds of qualifications, and it's not always necessary to have a PhD to teach a particular student a subject such as reading, writing, math, or even science or history. I mean, it might be necessary depending on the course and the age of the student, but in many cases that academic requirement is not necessary. What is more important is that the tutor is able to discuss how he or she will set up the program and what the process is, and also talk to them about their philosophy of teaching and their philosophy of education. This will give you a chance to open up. You'll both be a little bit more free to have just a person-to-person conversation. You get to know each other a little bit better, and you'll often get a feel for this tutor, for this person, and you can sometimes tell this is going to be a good fit, this is going to really work well, or maybe it's not going to work well, maybe this is not the perfect fit for you. I am looking down at my list, because I do have a long list here, and I don't want to miss something. Oh, an important question for some people: have you worked with students who have learning challenges? ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. There's so many persons on the autism scale. Now, it's not a question that you need to ask if your child is not dealing with any of these learning challenges, but in many cases, students who call me do have an issue with ADD or ADHD or dyslexia or some other learning challenge. And again, a tutor who has experience, and that's another question, how long have you been tutoring? What is your experience? He or she will have worked with students that have these challenges. Some of them might have been identified, some maybe haven't been formally identified, but for sure you will run into all different kinds of students with different learning styles. The important point is to listen and hear if the tutor is able to discuss how he or she will approach that particular issue, what kinds of tools will they use, or what kind of strategies do they have to help students deal with those issues and find a workaround or another method to help them achieve their goals while not giving up on their education. How will you design the student's program? So this is important. What is the program going to look like? Now, on a first conversation, the tutor isn't going to know everything about the program, but in general, how do you set up a program? Will the program be only homework support? Or will it be only tutor materials? Or is it going to be a combination of homework support and then building the foundation? That's what I prefer in most cases. I think that's more important. I find homework support is often a band-aid solution, and you can hire a student often very cheaply for that. But it won't address any issues that came previously, and it won't necessarily resolve issues that are coming up in the future. And that's why I call that a sort of band-aid approach. It does work sometimes if there's only one specific issue. What kind of reporting do you provide? Do they provide monthly reports? Is it a written report or simply an oral report? Is it sent online? And what other kinds of communication can there be between the reporting? So you just want to make sure that you understand how it works. This is not, most of these points, I'm not suggesting that you do hire or don't hire based on the answers to these questions. It's up to you, but these questions will begin to get you the kind of picture and the kind of information that you need to make that decision. Some people need a lot of communication. Some people would rather not have too much communication. So I can't give you the absolute answer on most of these questions. It has to be the right fit for you. And often you can work that out with the tutor. I tutor many different students, many different styles of learning, and many different parents. And I try to work with the parents and give them what they need, and that's not always the same for every set of parents. How can I help in the learning process, meaning you, the parent? Are there things that you can do at home? And that's a really important question, because often the short amount of time that a tutor has with the child isn't sufficient. So there are many things that you can do at home that can help. So is the tutor able to help you with that? How much do you charge per session? Now we're getting into the cost finally, because we've found out a lot about the tutor's personality, a lot about his or her education and her experience and what he can do. Now you want to talk about cost. And cost may be prohibitive. It might be something that you can't afford. Now many tutors have different prices depending on the program or the number of times that you meet or how you meet. So that's important to talk about all the different options and how that might be able to be made to work for you. So the normal or the average cost, maybe there's something else that can be done that will work for you and that you can still afford to do. Are there any additional fees for materials or providing homework practice or for phone calls or assessments or writing letters, etc.? Now, I personally don't add a lot of extra fees unless it's a special course like an ESL course and you want to purchase computer programs or specialized books that are very expensive. Obviously, that's not included in the monthly fee that I have. But most of my programs, everything is paid in one payment, and we don't have to add on extra fees for anything. However, be open and keep in mind that if you're asking the tutor for a lot of extra homework practice, he or she has to prepare that material, has to read over it and mark that material, go over it with the student, and then put it into his or her report. So it's a lot more work. So I think that deserves some compensation. So be open to the idea that depending on the program, there could be some extra fees. And then you want to know what those are ahead of time, if possible. And that could change over time, because you may get started without any homeworks, extra practice, and then you might add a little bit, which there's no change in the fee perhaps, and then you might want a lot so that they have something every day that they're not at tutoring. Well, now there's going to be a fairly large bulk of material coming back to the tutor. It's going to eat up a lot of time, and so that probably will need some compensation. Also, you could ask, what's the policy for cancellations? I would strongly recommend that you don't cancel if you can help it. And it's not just from a business perspective. Some people think, oh, he's just all about money. But it isn't about that alone. Of course, from a business perspective, it makes more sense. And I do need to know that you're going to be consistent. But also from an educational perspective, especially with younger students, but even with adult students, if you are not committed and you are not consistent, then it won't work very well. You will start finding excuses and finding ways of avoiding the work, and it just doesn't happen. And after a while, it starts to become very difficult to keep the student motivated. But if he or she knows, I come every Monday and Wednesday at 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock or whatever the time is, and they get used to that schedule and that routine, then it's less of a battle. It's much less difficult to go to the tutor and get the work done, or have the tutor come to you if that is the case. So there are a few questions that you can ask that will help you get a feel for the tutor and understand how the program is going to be set up, how the program is going to work. Oh, I should have mentioned as well, ask the tutor, how do you assess the student? What kinds of tools do you use? You don't necessarily need specific names, but you need to know, what are they going to use as an assessment? Are they going to use other assessments than their own? Are they going to use report cards or assessments that you've had done at a psychologist or at the school? I use a combination myself. I use information from the student if he or she is old enough. I use information obviously from the parents, information from school report cards or school assessments, and then third-party assessments as well if they've already been done. Why not put all of that together along with my own assessments? And I use different ones depending on the student. And you put all of that material together to help generate a program, but then the program changes over time as well. When the tutor is working with the student, that program is going to change because you learn more about the student and how the student is progressing as you work together. Wow, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot more than this that you could ask, but these questions will really get you started. Check out the blog because I've written 15 questions there. I'm not sure I covered everyone here separately. I'll put a link to the blog below and a link to the website. Of course, I'd be very happy to be your tutor and to help you or your child reach your learning goals. And in the meantime, have a great week, and I will talk to you again next week. Okay, it's Ron from L.T.L. Tutoring Central. Don't forget to subscribe or like the video. Make a comment, or if you have a question, ask a question. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can ask below, or you can always check out the website and email me. I'm always happy to discuss education with people. Bye-bye for now.